but dudes written's a product of my shrewd penning. Confused in it, I'm saying I've chewed mics to accrue likes, delusions, exuberant mic.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. So I decided, like, I'm a pattern noticing machine, right? I was going to sit down and do a video. I had a couple of videos going through my mind as I was watching that terrible episode of Monday Night Raw, which took place on August the 16th. And I kept saying to myself, hey, maybe I should do a video on, the success of NXT. And let's talk about all the great success stories that have come out of NXT. And in doing the research for that video, I was like, a lot of these people that were successful in NXT was not originally trained by WWE. Some of them had more experience than others, but most of the talents were not NXT talents. Some of them came from Florida Championship Wrestling. Quite a few of them did. And then I started doing some research there, and I was like, oh, I should just do a series talking about WWE developmental. That'll be fun. And then as I was, poking around and all this kind of stuff, I just sat down and I said to myself, what does it say about NXT that the current WWE champion, Bobby Lashley, is 45 years old, graduated from the OVW system? And I said to myself, when was the last NXT graduate that was a WWE champion? The WWE champion, not the Universal champion, but the WWE champion. And the only thing I'm talking like consistently went through the NXT system, right? Not Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was in FCW. Not Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was in FCW. Not Dean Ambrose. He went through FCW. Not Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins not only went through Ring of Honor, which means he was basically an independent talent that they signed, and was not really a quote developmental, just like Adam Cole isn't, just like Johnny Gargano isn't, just like guys who went through that Ring of Honor system or went through Impact or TNA. I don't consider those guys to be quote developmental. Developmental is if you never worked really American television before, So when you say that these guys, where are these guys, where's the success stories of NXT? I really don't know. I'm talking like high level, top level guys that came through the Performance Center, killed it, got onto the main roster, and made it big. And it's like, I can't think of one. And when you look at the Universal Championship, I mean, there is zero. Because the youngest person to ever be Universal Champion was Kevin Owens. And again, he went through Ring of Honor. So where is the success stories from NXT? Of course, the biggest success stories of NXT comes through the women's division. So if I was to do that list that I had an idea for, doing the biggest success stories, people that WWE actually trained from scratch to success, the only one I could think of off the top of my head is Bianca Belair. That's it. And Charlotte. Okay? And I'm talking like people who never worked anywhere else. Bayley has, she didn't work television, I don't believe, anywhere else, but she did work independence. Sasha Banks' initial trainers were independents. She was actually signed pretty young, though, because she's a little bit of a prodigy, and she's actually done a lot, and she's under the age of 30. I would give WWE a lot of credit for her success, but of course not all of it. Paige would be another one. They signed her very young. But that would be where the success is as far as the NXT system. It would be in the women's division. Because the men's division seems to have, when you look at the long list of NXT champions, most of the last few NXT champions have been independent wrestlers. Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is a 36-year-old journeyman wrestler who spent a lot of time in Mexico, Japan, doing various independents in the United States, working at Impact. Before him, it was Finn Balor. Finn Balor, of course, spent a lot of time in Japan, worked all the independents possible. And before him, it was Keith Lee. Before him, it was Adam Cole. Before him, it was what was it? Was it Andrade? No, it was Johnny Gargano or Tommaso Ciampa. Again, PWG and Ring of Honor for both of them. Was it, I think Aleister Black was one of them. He had worked extensively in Europe. I don't know if he worked American independents that closely or that much. I'm not sure. Andrade, of course, was big in Mexico, Japan. You have to keep going back to back and back. Like who? And it would be like Big E. Like Big E and Jinder Mahal are like two guys that like never really worked anywhere else that won the NXT title and went on to become, decent stars for WWE. You know, when right at the Neville spot, because Neville was another big independence guy. Then Sami Zayn, of course, that's El Generico from Ring of Honor, and then Kevin Owens, and then, Samoa Joe, for Christ's sake, and Shinsuke Nakamura, for Christ's sake, and then Robert Roode, and come on, Drew McIntyre. Well, none of these guys are guys that NXT is training to make top stars. And you can see, in just doing a cursory glance at this stuff without putting too much pressure on it, you can see where NXT went wrong. Now, the problem with NXT is what I just said, but it also it tracks with the traditional WWE way of recruitment, where a guy gets over somewhere else, you snatch him up, bring him to WWE. This is what they've been doing through the territories. This is what Triple H learned from Vince. Vince sat back and watched Vern Gagne groom Hulk Hogan and get Hulk Hogan over, and Hulkamania began in Minneapolis, and then Vince snatched them. Roddy Piper, Randy Savage, all of these talents, Jake the Snake Roberts, all of these guys that worked in other places. Vince would just go through and poach them. Boop, 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 boop. And that's really, he had no developmental. He didn't make his own stars. His thing was, you should want to come to New York is where I will make you a star, but you have to have experience already when you get here. And when you see the success in WWE so far, it tracks. It's the exact same thing. If you were in Ring of Honor or TNA or something like that, it tracks more to your success in WWE right now. On the male side, it tracks more on, with your success level. It doesn't really track that, you're a guy WWE finds and then trains and then you go on to be WWE champion. It has not happened yet. Jinder Mahal might have been pretty much the only one in recent years. And that was years ago, right? So that was like, 2017? Like WWE has not trained their own champion since 2017. I forgot about The Miz. Like The Miz was another one who went through WWE developmental and became the champion. I think he went through Deep South. I think did he go through OVW? No, I think he was on TV after that. The Miz, Kofi Kingston, they come from that. I think they come from a similar class. So because The Miz was signed in 2004, and he went through Tough Enough, of course, but he was sent, I believe, to Deep South Wrestling, if I remember correctly, from just the cursory glance at the alumni that I looked at. I believe something is telling me Sheamus was on that list, but I don't want to commit to it. But the OVW guys, completely turned over WWE, and they continued to run things. They came back and basically just took all the top spots. I mean, Brock left. He came back, took the top spot all the way again. Then Lashley left. He came back and took the top spot. It's like, shit, if you didn't go through OVW, what chance do you have? But everybody who went through OVW is 40 plus at this point. So at some point we need to move on, right? And before that, I don't even want to put any thought into it. Now, of course, people will say, well, Randy Orton was the champion in 2020. It's like, yeah, Randy Orton's like the only guy. Him and Lashley are both OVW guys. So those guys are old. It says a lot because WWE has not had a relationship with OVW in, 10 years more, 13 years maybe. So it's been a long time since WWE has literally sat down and made their own top guys. Usually they have survived by poaching talent from Ring of Honor or TNA or from somewhere else, Japan or something like that. Like the guy who made the big splash in recent years was AJ Styles. He jumped ship from New Japan in 2016. Of course, he had all those years in TNA before that. And that's why you see the roster getting so old, because WWE poaches a guy. The guy's 36 already. It's going to take him a year or two, unless he's a prodigy like AJ Styles and that has a history of working on television. It's going to take them a couple of years to get over on TV. Let's say 2 years, and which is usually the average for WWE. It takes you about 2 years to get over. 5 years really to be like a top level star. And then the question becomes, all right, now what do we do? If you sign a guy and he's 35, that means in 2 years he'd be 37. Then by the time he's a solid main eventer, it's time to rotate him out and bring in somebody else because he's kind of old, And you could see that the roster was getting significantly older as Triple H was signing older and older talent. But he was doing that because that's the system. That's always been the WWE system. But he missed the mark on developmental. And if you think, well, I'm talking off the top of my head and I don't have any notes. Kofi Kingston was one of the guys WWE actually trained from scratch. He went through, but he didn't go through OVW. He went through Deep South, which was the system after OVW. Like Sheamus also, I believe went to Deep South. Yes, I think also went through Deep South, I believe. I know he was definitely in FCW. I think FCW might be the right one. Of course, CM Punk went through, the OVW system. So you have to ask the question, like, when was the last time they kind of made their own champions? Like, when you look at WWE's developmental system, a lot of guys come through it, but a lot of people get caught in the grind, and they just get churned out, through one way or another. And it's tough, but they have a history of just blowing up developmental. They just do it. Sometimes it's, shenanigans taking place and they have to, get their name away from it. Sometimes it's just, hey, we've been doing this for a while now. Let's, move on from here. And I'm not saying that there's anything going to be wrong. There's nothing wrong with NXT is what I'm saying. It's just, it operates on the old Vince McMahon model from the 80s and 90s. And that's not what it was created for. It was created to do what OVW did, what FCW did, what Deep South did. That is find new talent and to, support new talent. That's what NXT is supposed to be doing. But it went way out into left field. Again, signing guys who were 34 or 35 years old and not doing what they were supposed to do. And that's just me sitting down at a glance. And obviously this came to me as I was watching Lashley in the ring. And I was just kind of like, man, I'm a big fan of Lashley. It's crazy that you sit down and talk about, how he was in 2007, a guy on the cusp. And he was on that goddamn cusp for 13 years. Of course, he spent 10 of those years outside of WWE, wrestling for Impact and doing mixed martial arts. But you catch my drift. Guys who've been around that long, it's and they're the top guys in the company, not the NXT talent that were on NXT 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, quite a few of the people who were top stars in NXT a couple of years ago are not even in WWE anymore, such as Andrade, Aleister Black, Pac. Those guys aren't even in WWE anymore. Sure, Sami Zayn's still there. Kevin Owens is still there. Robert Roode is still there. Samoa Joe got fired, got brought back. But, some of the guys that they were pushing, Bo Dallas isn't there anymore. Jinder Mahal got fired and got brought back. Big E is just now getting pushed, and he's been out of NXT for a long time. So it's hard when you look at the system. And part of it is the way that they book talent. Part of it is how they push talent. Part of it is guys who were brought in during the era of John Cena and when they just was not going in any direction other than John Cena. Other guys, when they came in, it was the Roman Reigns era, and they were insisting that Roman Reigns is the top guy, and that's kind of how it is right now. So, guys who are in NXT is like, well, I'm not going to get over on Roman. Why waste my time? But this also is why all of the success stories are the women. Because really, there weren't that many bulletproof women. There was the 4 horsewomen, and then, of course, over time, they became bulletproof, and now nobody can get over on them, as evidenced by how, Charlotte is, absolutely just dogging out Nikki during her own title run. Just absolutely dogging her out. Dogged out Rhea Ripley, too, so you're not going to be able to get over on her. It's almost like it's happening again, where, guys would come out of developmental, they would be ready, but then they hit that Cena wall, or they hit that Orton wall, or that Brock wall, and they can't get over it, or that Roman, they just can't get over. They can't get over that hump. And now the women are seeing the same thing where, but at least these women have come through NXT, so at least they have been developed properly through WWE system. But this is just me riffing because I was bored with Raw, and I just wanted to sit down and talk about this. And I'll probably put it in a more structured way later as I sit down and maybe do the videos on developmental programs. But I just kind of wanted to be like, man, Lashley is 45 years old. He went through OVW. He was in OVW with like Brock and Cena and those guys. And he's the top guy now, across from Roman Reigns, who was in a system with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins and Big E. And when those guys started, and that's been about 10 years, where is the next guys going to come from? When are we finally going to get like the Bianca Belair of the men's division? Who's going to be that guy that WWE went out, found, trained, and made to be a top level guy? I mean, the closest we got right now is Amos, right? I think that's the closest one where everybody seems to like Amos. He's never worked anywhere else. He's never done anything else. And I guess Braun Strowman would be one. I forgot about him. But I guess Braun Strowman, yeah, he would be because he was Universal Champion, but he was really only the champion because, Roman decided not to work the pandemic. But yeah, Braun Strowman would be a good one. But, I can't think of any guy off the top of my head that was trained by the Performance Center that's going to go on to be WWE champion. I just can't think of one. Everybody that pops into my head is probably some independent talent that's just waiting for a spot. So, it's tough. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. And let me know what you guys think about doing the developmental videos, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these sleazy